What's up, nation? Today let's talk Mortal Shell. Hey everyone, today we get to talk about a Souls-like game, which is pretty exciting to me. It's a game by the name of Mortal Shell. It's being developed by a company called Cold Cemetery. So they're an indie developer who really wanted to create a Souls-like game that stuck really close to the formula. They definitely added in some things that were original to them, like the harden mechanic and some different things that we're going to talk about here today in this video. But I did get a chance to play through the beta quite a few times while it was in an open beta release through the Epic Games Store. That has since closed, so it's not available right now, but we're really not that far away from the release. In fact, Q3 of 2020 is what it's slated for on all platforms. I think except for Steam is going to be released on 2021, but you can actually get it on the Epic Games Store in Q3 of 2020. So with that, I want to transition into some gameplay footage and talk about kind of what I'm most excited about from this game and the direction it's headed, and then also where I think that they might be able to improve a little bit and hopefully refine the gameplay style before it's fully released, because there were some clunky moments when I was playing through it that just didn't feel quite as smooth as some of what From Software has been able to accomplish with this style of game. But I would love to know what you guys thought as well if you did get a chance to play it. So I'm looking forward to having that discussion. But with that, let's jump into 5 things that I loved and then 5 things that I'm a little bit concerned about and hope that they can turn around before the final release. So let's get it going. So the first thing that stuck out to me about this game when I was playing through the tutorial area is, wow, it's decently difficult. Now, granted, they're letting you kind of, play around in this first area, and you don't really have too much of a risk of death. They're really just showing you how the mechanics work. But yeah, and maybe it's just the fact that I haven't gotten fully comfortable with the harden mechanic that they came out with yet, which is basically something that is you're able to, at a moment's notice, just get like super strong poise that an enemy can hit you with a full swing. And if you're hardened in that moment, you basically just take the hit with no damage, and it stuns them for a second so you can hit back. So that was a really cool mechanic. But outside of that, the enemy difficulty really felt like it was really pretty high level. I mean, definitely the more you play through the game, the more you do start to kind of get down the idea of what I think the developers wanted you to do. But that being said, I felt like playing through the entire beta that I was at a pretty decent risk of death at all times. I mean, I never felt like I had truly, gotten to the point where the bosses or any enemies that you were facing later on in the beta were not a threat. I mean, I definitely felt like I was, could die at any point in time, which I definitely liked. That created that kind of fear, that anxiety that Souls games really do pretty well. And then it seems like it's pretty punishing whenever if you've made a lot of progress knocking off different enemies. They're not afraid to send you back a decent journey to your most recent restore point. So I was happy to see that. That's a positive for me. I love whenever developers aren't afraid to challenge the player. I love when they figure that we're probably already somewhat experienced Souls players and they really want to ramp up that difficulty to the next level. So I do think that that's one of the things that I'm excited about with this game, is I think that they are going to create a truly challenging experience here for us. So that's definitely a positive in my book. The next thing that's really exciting for me is new gameplay mechanics. I mean, seeing them kind of stick close to the Souls formula is really nice, but when they can do that and then still add in their own flair of new gameplay mechanics is when I really do appreciate the vision of what they're trying to create. So what we talked about before is the harden ability. That feels like something that I gotta learn. It's new, it's different than what I've experienced in Souls games, and it's a different strategy to press the L2 button and then basically just expect an enemy to hit you. You're just gonna stand there and take it, but you know that you can attack back right after. And then there's also strategies you can do with that technique where if you attack and harden while you're in the attacked position, that it creates like an extra hit towards the enemy. So that was really cool. And then they have something in this game called Resolve, which I guess builds up as you're hitting enemies in the background. You're going to see like a little gold bar start to fill up beneath your health, and that's something that was pretty exciting for me to see, because I didn't use that L1 R1 trigger like it's a strong move whenever you're powered up on Resolve, and I didn't use that through the whole beta until I got to the boss fight, and I was like almost shocked how much health it took off the boss in comparison to how much my other attacks were doing. But then to my surprise, when I did die on my first attempt against the boss, and I tried to run straight back to him. Since I hadn't fought all those other enemies along the way, I didn't have any resolve built up, and then that made for my second encounter with the boss that much harder. So I do like that they're kind of they're punishing you in a way for just running straight into there with no combat. If you try to avoid the enemies, you're not going to have those super powerful resolve attacks saved up. So I really thought that the balance there in their new gameplay mechanics is pretty impressive. So I hope they continue to tweak and refine them and introduce more than what we've seen in just the initial beta, but it was promising for what I played through. And then another thing that I'm really excited about to see how they pull this off is the way that they're approaching classes. So as opposed to it being something where you're sticking your experience into certain skills and you're going to pick a path, strength, dexterity, or you're going to pick more of a magic path, and then you can maybe go rebalance those points later on, like we know in Souls games with different items that you can reallocate your stats. As opposed to taking that path, the Mortal Shell gimmick is kind of you're taking over shells of fallen warriors or people who were either dead or they were about to die, and you basically came across them as a being or a spirit, and you're taking over their shell, and based off of which shell you pick is kind of what class you are. So when you start this beta, you start out as more of the warrior type, which is definitely my preferred style of play. So you're a little bit it's more strength based, and you roll a little bit slower, but then you do have that extra power behind your hits. But then shortly into the beta, you do unlock a second shell, which is definitely like the dexterity build. So your health drops quite a bit. You start to move a bunch faster and dodge a bunch faster, but then of course at the expense of having very powerful hits. So I thought that was cool, and it seemed like it was something where I could just switch back and forth limitless. So I don't know if it'll be like that in the final game, but I think if they could pull that off, where maybe a certain boss I want to have one class, but then I just want to go switch to a different shell for a different style boss, I think that strategy could be really exciting to see it come to fruition if they pull that off right. So let's hope that they balance out the classes in the right level and make it exciting to play for all the different types of classes, and not just where you stick to one path and that's it. And then the boss fights, man, they seem promising. I will tell you, the encounter with the boss for the beta was extremely challenging for me. It took me multiple times to actually, knock him off and get through his health bar. I mean, I would say that I was probably upwards of 7 or 8 tries in it at that, and then to find out, I thought that was actually an area boss in this game. That's considered a mini boss, and Cold Cemetery actually confirmed that was just a mini boss, just a small roadblock, but they added in like super intense music while you're facing him. He's like giant, but then at the same time he's able to hop around the map and keep up as if he's super fast. But I was able to keep my distance enough. If I really wanted to, I could run away from him and kind of watch him come to me. But that being said, I mean, he still gave me a run for my money the whole time. If he gets a couple hits lined up back to back, just like that, I was in danger of dying. And so I really think that if they make all the different bosses unique and a different type of style that you have to attack them with, I think that we could really be in for something promising in that regard. So I do hope that they have a number of different epic boss fights, but if the beta was any indication of what we're going to see for the boss fights in this game, you can put me down for excited for that. And then the other thing that really impressed me in this game is actually the graphic quality. I mean, considering that we're talking about an indie developer here, I thought this looked like a great game. I mean, the graphic textures and the quality and the lighting, even just the movements of everything, it really felt pretty smooth. I mean, I definitely think that they're doing a good job of creating like a dark world that you feel kind of nervous to go and explore because of the level of danger that they've created with really aggressive enemies. And then the whole thing just looks really crisp, and it really runs great the whole time. I mean, at one point I had a guy that I totally didn't expect. I had like 3/4 of his health gone, and he rips off his head and throws it directly at me, and then he like explodes into a pile of poison. So and all of that looked great while it was happening. So they're definitely, I mean, they're building this game in Unreal Engine 4, so they definitely have a great tool set, but it seems like they're really maximizing it and really making a great project out of it. So I'm excited excited to see what the finished project is going to look like if it gets any more polished up, but I think we're definitely probably pretty close to the final look and design of this game, considering that it is in open beta. So with that, it had me excited. When I heard indie Souls-like game, I kind of immediately thought that we'd maybe be looking at a little bit less graphical quality than this. So when I got through it and played through it, I was really impressed with that. And now on to a few of the things that I hope that that the developers can improve a little bit before the final release, or maybe not even the final release, but maybe like in a sequel type game, because obviously there's going to be a limited amount of time. They're only a few months away from release at this point. But the first thing that did pop out to me, I do like the world that they created. It definitely feels smaller than what we're used to in a Souls-like game. So I'm a little bit nervous about, like, is there going to be, you know, a lot of different paths to go down? Is it going to be a little bit too linear? There was definitely break off sections where you can choose like a right path or a left path or a straight path, but it all felt like you were just headed in the same direction. It didn't feel like anything was really that unexpected or surprising that popped out to me in my initial playthrough of the area that they gave us. And obviously this could be the very beginning of the game. We really don't know the answers to those questions, but I mean, I do think that I hope to see a broader world than what is in this first part. So I do hope it opens up at one point and that we're more in a, we could go, you know, 4 or 5 different directions, but then maybe still kind of link back to each other later on. I didn't get that vibe from this point in the game, but of course it's a little bit early to tell. The next thing that I think just needs a little bit of tweaking, it's not even necessarily like they have to overhaul or change it, but there is just something that doesn't feel quite as smooth about the combat. I almost just feel like it needs just some slight tweaks to, like, maybe the hits need to land a little bit harder and you need to get a little bit more feedback, or maybe even just ramp up the speed slightly. I don't know quite what it was, but there was a number of times when and it could just be that I'm so used to playing Souls games, but there was a number of times that I died and I just didn't feel like I caused the death, if you will. Like it just felt like something where maybe by part of the game's, you know, not registering every hit correctly, or, you know, if I'm rolling off in a direction and an enemy connects with me that it felt like it shouldn't have. I don't know, something about it. I definitely don't have this complaint with From Software games, and I do think that they, you know, when you die in a From Software game, you pretty much feel like it was your fault. There was a few different times where I just felt like the combat was a little bit less refined than that. So I hope they can just tweak a couple things and make it feel a little bit more natural, and a little bit more like, you know, if you messed up, you know it was you and not the game. So let's hope that they just tweak a couple things in the combat to make it just a little bit smoother than what it is in beta. The next thing that I hope they tweak a little bit, and this might just be a personal preference for me, but from what I can see, so far we don't have any kind of like recharging healing item. So we're kind of left up to almost like a Demon Souls style, where you had like Crescent Moongrass in that game. It looks like the mushrooms were the things that healed you in this game, at least in this beta area. I'm sure there's probably more items than that, but there was stuff where, you know, at one point I was, you know, getting stuck on the boss and I was like, okay, the mushrooms kept respawning, so I decided, like, I'm gonna sit here and get a few extra of the mushrooms before I go fight the boss again. And while I do like that from like a player standpoint of the I can just grind out some more health items, and then that way I don't have to be so worried about the boss fight, there's still something more exciting to me about having a certain number of, you know, the Ectus flasks that recharge every time, you know, you have 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever it is going into the battle, and regardless of how hard that enemy is, that's the limit to the number of health items that you're going to have. So I don't know if we're going to see a rechargeable health supply at the final release of this game or not, but from what we saw in the beta, it was all item based. I also don't know if those items cap out or not. Like, if I have 10 mushrooms in my inventory, is that all I can carry? Probably not. I think it continues to scale, so I just don't want to see a situation where you're able to kind of have an ample supply of your health items to where you almost don't have to worry or play as cautiously because of it. So I hope that is either tweaked or you know, just balanced out to where you find the right amount and it's not something that you're able to just farm and just kind of go guns blazing through the game with no worries because you're fully stocked on your health recovering items. And then I'm also really hoping that we get to customize our character. I mentioned that I do like the way that they are actually attacking the class system in this game, with giving you the different options from shells to switch between different build styles. But I hope that just because I pick that strength build or that dex build, that I'm not just stuck with exactly what he looks like, with that weapon and with those with that exact moveset or with those exact armor sets. I hope that we see a lot of variety and customization and different armor sets, and hopefully you can even level up your weapons and armors. We didn't get a real glimpse of that in this beta on what that full system, when it's all fleshed out, will look like. So that's just one of my hopes, is that if I want to go strength build through the entire game or through most of the game, and that's my main guy, I hope I feel like I get a lot of control over what he ends up looking like and what weapons he ends up wielding, and then also just the overall aesthetic of him from start to finish, from the ground up. So hopefully we see customization in that. It has yet to be confirmed on what that'll finally look like in the final release of the product, but that's one thing that did stand out to me in terms of maybe the limitation to doing the shell style from how we've seen it so far. And then the last thing that I would say is just really a hope of mine, is that I hope it's a decently long game. I think we are looking at a $60 price tag here with this one, and if we are, I hope we're getting close to 40 to 50 hours of total gameplay. I think the one thing that could be a challenging thing for this indie developer is to pump out that much gameplay, given the amount of time and the budget that they have. So I hope that it's not something where we're just in the 10 to 15 hour ballpark, but if we get anything far above that, in the 25 to 35 range, I think that's probably a fair amount. But I really just, one of my concerns is that it's not going to be, hopefully it's not too short of a game at the end of it. By the end of the beta, I did actually want to keep going and keep playing. And I know this is just the initial kind of peek behind the curtain and to work out some of the bugs and get some feedback from fans. But I certainly hope that we see a good quality, long project at the end of it, because I think it is a really impressive world that they created here. So let's just hope we get to enjoy it in a full-length fashion. So 40 to 50 hours is a sweet spot for me. If they can get anywhere near that, I will be super thrilled and super happy to pay $60 for this game. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I did want to invite everybody to start a conversation with me in the comments down below. Let me know what you're most excited about with this game. Are you looking forward to everything more after the beta release? Is it something that you're not going to be interested in and probably going to skip the release? I would just love to know where you guys are at after this new footage that we've seen. And then I would really love to know people who did play through the beta, what your takeaways were. Did you like the feel and the style of the game, or are you more or less excited about it now that you got to play the beta? So let's get that conversation started in the comments below. And then I did want to invite everybody to join Sunbro Nation today. If you haven't already, do so by just clicking the subscribe button. I'll be putting out more videos on Mortal Shell. I'll be covering Demon Souls Remake and Elden Ring as it's released. And then once these games are finally out with their final product, I'll also be doing gameplay deep dives and just strategy videos and different informational style content. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, please join Sunbro Nation today. I would love to have you guys. With that, again, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate everybody. Hit the like button if you haven't already. And that's it for me. Sunbro Nation out.